Hey folks, you're listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I am your upcoming host, Jell, and I ask you to please stay tuned until 1 o'clock for GameBabble Live. That'll be in just a few short minutes. Either way, that was Jezebel by Clockwork. Coming up next is Hold On by Fivefold. Please enjoy, and thank you so much for listening. Hello, you're listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. That was The Way IR, Dance With Somebody by Bebe Rexha, and this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. now, so please, tune in every Wednesday for the show. I hope you do join us. We love to start the show off by talking about the new game releases, what came out this week, what's coming out next week, followed by what anime are in theaters, because yes, anime keeps coming to theaters, and it keeps being like a limited release thing, and I like to tell people about it so that way they know, because it really slips under the radar. Like, did you know Castle of Cagliostro is going to be in theaters? In fact, I think it's in theaters today? Tomorrow. Okay, we'll get back to that, though. Anyway, game releases! Let's start with the PlayStation 4. First of all, 100-foot robot golf wound up getting, like, relisted because they added in a new crazy kaiju driving range where the player in VR plays kaiju and tries to swat away golf balls while a player on controller tries to hit golf balls past them with their giant robot. It's a very strange game, that 100-foot robot golf. I really need to pick it up sometime. Also, Bloody Zombies, which is a side-scrolling beat-em-up that also supports PlayStation VR, but really doesn't need it because it's very 2D, but apparently it's kind of neat. Butter and Friends Babysitter Sim. Okay. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare Retribution. I'm going to assume that's an expansion pack. Dream Break. Get Over Here. Happy Dungeons, which is some kind of, like, free-to-play dungeon crawler thing from the makers of Happy Wars. So if you like that, that's there. Injustice 2 Fighter Pack 2, so Black Manta. Does that mean that Starfire came out? Did I miss that? Whatever. Inside/Limbo Double Pack. Maze, as in corn. It involves, like, a teddy bear and corn people. Manifest 99, that's another PlayStation VR game. Mantis Burn Racing Battle Cars, which is another interesting free-to-play game on PS4. A lot of those popping up. NASCAR Heat 2. NHL 18 Young Stars Edition. Planet of the Eyes. Pro Evolution Soccer 2018. Samurai Showdown 5 Special. That one's actually important. Because there are because prior to this, Samurai Showdown 5 Special, not regular, special, could only be obtained on Neo Geo. It was the last Neo Geo game, and SNK was like, we want to keep this the last Neo Geo game, so that way, system goes out with the bang, this is the final game, hooray. But a lot of people are like, Samurai Showdown 5 Special is one of the best fighting games ever made. Like, it's a huge improvement over the original Samurai Showdown 5, which was garbage. And very few people played it because it was a very obscure Neo Geo release. So now it has a proper home port. I hear it has online play. The online play is probably terrible, but I'm not sure. And it's like, that's interesting. Anyway, moving on. SEUM, Speedrunners from Hell, Time Recoil, Tooth and Tail, which is a real-time strategy game for consoles with pixel art, like specifically designed so that way it's actually playable on a console. That's, about a bunch of animals eating each other. Transcripted, Trulon the Shadow Engine, VR Carts, which is practically a scam. Yeah, the pricing on that game is stupid. And Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana, the Day 1 edition, which we will be talking about very shortly. Also, ACA Neo Geo Spin Master. I forget what Spin Master is. Was that a golf game? Whatever. Some kind of game for Neo Geo came out on PS4 as well. Baja Edge of Control HD, that's all tomorrow. Day after tomorrow, we have Dishonored Death of the Outsider. I assume that's another DLC expansion. NBA 2K18 Legend Edition / NBA Live 18 and NHL 18. So if you like the basketball, that is the 15th. That's Friday, though I know that the local GameStop at Cross Keys is doing a midnight launch for that, because I was mentioning I might come back in on Thursday, and they're like, if you do it before 6 o'clock, because people are going to be getting here for their, to start lining up for their pre-orders. It's like, wow, people like their basketball. Anyway, moving on. Xbox One, what you got? Injustice 2 Fighter Pack 2, Inside/Limbo Double Pack, Maze Mantis Burn Racing Battle Cars, NASCAR Heat 2, NHL 18, Planet of the Eyes, Pro Evolution Soccer 2018. Oh, Don't Starve Together Console Edition apparently comes out today for Xbox One, along with Transcripted, and then tomorrow is Arcade Archives Neo Geo Spin Master, Baja Edge of Control, and then Friday, Dishonored, Death of the Outsider, Dream Break, NBA 2K18, NBA Live NHL 18, Time Recoil, and something called Jetomero Hero of the Universe from Ghost Time Games? Yeah, I've never heard of this. Interesting, though. Interesting. That's happening. Moving right along, Nintendo Switch this week, Rayman Legends Definitive Edition came out, and I would love to know what makes it so definitive, because I do like Rayman Legends. It's a really, really good game, but I kind of bought it on my Wii U. Other than portability, why do I need this definitive edition? Like, I might pick it up just for the portability, but still. Anyway, tomorrow on the Switch, 36 Fragments of Midnight, Beach Buggy Racing, Kingdom New Lands, Pan, A Tiny Big Adventure, Semispheres, Spin Master, probably the Arcade Archives thing, NBA 2K18, Robonauts. Yeah, that sums up. Then we get into next week. Let's see, what is next on the list? 3DS, what are you doing? Tomorrow, Percy's Predicament Deluxe. And day after tomorrow, hey! Metroid Samus Returns, the Metroid 2 remake, by the makers of the Castlevania Lords of Shadow series, will be coming out. And also a new Nintendo 3DS XL Samus Edition. So, go Metroid fans, you got a thing coming. And wherefore went the Vita? There's the Vita. Oh, hey, check that out. The Vita got Body Check, Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, Samurai Showdown 5 Special, very nice. And that's what's on Vita. So that sums up the new releases for this week. What about next week? Let's see, on PS4, next week, we will be getting The Solus Project, which I hear should have PSVR support. Echo, Hidden Dragon Legend, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, that matters. Minecraft Story Mode Season 2, the Telltale series, so more of that. NBA 2K18, The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus, Pankapu, Caveman Warriors, Project Cars 2, Raiders of the Broken Planet, and the Lego Ninjago movie video game. Good times for everyone. Xbox One, what are you getting next week? Xbox One is getting Blackguards 2, then Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, Minecraft Story Mode Season 2, Telltale Series, NBA 2K18, More Fight Pankapu, Super Hydora, whatever that is, Caveman Warriors Inc., Project Cars 2, Raiders of the Broken Planet, SEUM, Speedrunners from Hell, The Coma, Recut, and the Lego Ninjago movie video game. Switch, where did you go? Switch is getting More Fight, Soldam, Drop Connect Erase, which is a puzzle game, SteamWorld Dig 2, Thimbleweed Park, and, oh hey, is that next week? Yeah, next Friday, next Friday the Switch will be getting Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, Pokken Tournament DX, and the Lego Ninjago movie video game. So that's happening. 3DS, how about you? Next week, 3DS gets Guide the Ghost, and that's it. Okay, and Vita, because yes, they still make Vita games. Gets Mary Skelter Nightmares, which I'm hearing is kind of a thing. Alright, that sums up the video game releases for this week and next week, that we know of anyway. Anime in theaters. Lupin the Third, The Castle of Cagliostro, which was like the first, I don't know if it was the first, but it was one of the first feature films that Hayao Miyazaki worked on. Obviously before truly founding Studio Ghibli, and that actually really, it's his directorial debut. That's the big thing with it. It's based on the Lupin the Third series, and if you've never seen Lupin, it's a friggin' fantastic classic anime series. I absolutely recommend checking some out, but hey, a good place to start is indeed The Castle of Cagliostro, so go ahead and tune in for that. If you're a really, really old gamer, the Laserdisc arcade game Cliffhanger was actually using footage from this movie. Anyway, Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro will be in theaters tomorrow, September 14th, dubbed, and September 19th, subbed. Let me see if I can bring up some show times for that. 7 p.m. tomorrow dubbed, and 7 p.m. on the 19th, so that is next Tuesday, subbed. Keep that in mind. Also, later on in the month, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind will be in theaters, likely dubbed, Sunday, September 24th at 12:55 p.m., and then Monday at 7 p.m., September 25th, that Monday. Sorry. September 25th, 7 p.m., Monday. Yes, that's when Nausicaa will also be. Look it up on Google. Nausicaa's going to be in theaters. I think there should be a third day, shouldn't there? Let me double check that. Yeah, also September 27th at 7 p.m. for another chance at watching it dubbed. So Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind will also be in theaters. That concludes the Anime in Theaters report and the video games coming out this week and next week. I will now kick you back to the music with Detroit vs. Everybody by Eminem featuring Royce Da, 5'9" Big Sean. That's what it says on my screen. It's like, wow, that's okay. And when we get back, we will be talking Videogame news. So please stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind, and thank you so much for listening. Hello, you're listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. That was Detroit vs. Everybody by Eminem featuring Royce Da, 5'9" Big Sean. And this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Jell. And good news! We finally have the first gameplay footage of Penguin-kun Gira Wars. I'm sorry, I care way too much about this. I think of all the games coming out this year, this is probably the one I'm second most. No, actually, I think I might care more about this than Sonic Forces. This might be the game I am most excited for this year. Like, of all the stuff coming out before 2018, Penguin-kun Gira Wars. If you're just joining us with me and my obsession with this, Penguin-kun Wars is an old arcade game. I thought it was from Konami, but apparently it's not. Old arcade game from 1985. It was put on the Famicom and Game Boy. The only US release was Game Boy. And it's kind of like a weird dodgeball game, where you were on one side and you were a penguin, there was other animals on the other side, and each of you had 5 balls. And you threw them across the table at one another with the goal of either getting all 10 balls to your opponent's side of the table, or having the least balls on your side of the table when time runs out. This all sounds, very basic. Until you see it in action. Until you realize, oh yeah, you get to aim the balls, and the balls bounce off of one another, and they bounce off of the rim, and if you hit your opponent with the ball, it knocks them down, stunning them, and allowing you to throw a bunch of balls over there, and it just turns into complete chaotic madness. Unfortunately, due to its back view, there was no good way for the longest time to play Versus Mode except owning 2 Game Boys, a link cable, and 2 copies of Penguin-kun Wars. And considering I have never seen a physical copy of Penguin-kun Wars in English, yeah. I need to start looking for that. I'm going to keep my eyes peeled next time I go to, like, Slackers or V-Stock. If anyone winds up with a copy of Penguin-kun Wars on the original Game Boy, I'll totally take it. Game's great. But anyway, apparently they tried to do a mobile version and stuff, but now they have a big, crazy new one coming to Switch with ridiculous characters and super moves and split screen play, so you can finally play Versus, and it has 2-on-2 play, and it has a bunch of different rule sets, including one where characters, like, actually have a life bar. It looks like there's one with a top-down view. Like, they really look like they are going all in on this new Penguin-kun Wars to make it basically to take the concept of animals throwing balls at one another and stretching it as far as they possibly can. And that makes me very happy. And apparently, like, I have the sound turned off right now, but apparently it's supposed to have really good music because they're, like, grabbing people out of the Japanese club music scene and getting them to do music for this game. And I have heard absolutely no word of a US release, but I guarantee I will make a Japanese account and download this game. I need Penguin-kun Gira Gira Wars in my life. But yeah, the first gameplay footage is up on NintendoDifference.com, which looks like it's a French website, but it's a YouTube video, so just look up First Penguin Wars Switch footage, and you should hopefully be able to find it and understand why I'm so hyped about this, because I'm seeing the footage starts with them towards the end of a 2-on-2 match, and they're just throwing supers everywhere, and way too promising. Way too promising. So let's get to the video game news you probably care about. Let's see. First, sorry. Oh, geez, that sounded terrible. I am really sorry about that. The microphone kind of started flying everywhere. First of all, somehow the Cuphead controversy is still continuing. I don't know how. It's been a week. It's still going. If you're unfamiliar, game journalist posted a video of him playing Cuphead really badly. Bunch of folks pointed and laughed at it, and then a bunch of other game journalists came out in his defense and said you don't need to be good at playing video games to talk about video games, which caused everyone else to scratch their head and go, huh? Wait a second. So that somehow that's still going on. I don't know how. Because both sides of this argument agree that it's a stupid argument. They just don't agree on what the other side is saying. Because it's just a mess. Let's not get into it. It's still going. Let's see. Ooh, here we go. Here's some important news. The Super NES Classic will be produced past 2017, and the NES Classic will return summer 2018. And there will be more Super NES Classics in the first shipment than NES Classics produced so far. Yeah, that's some pretty good news. We'll get more into that after yet another break. Sorry, I just kind of obsessed over Penguin-kun Wars for a little bit of a lengthy amount of time there. So let's see. Coming up next is Distance by Omarion, and when we get back, we will continue talking about the NES, Super NES Classic situation, talk a little bit about some upcoming Switch games, and eventually, sometime today, we will talk about Ys 8, The Lacrimosa of Dana, and how fantastic that game is. But first, here's Distance by Omarion, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. That was Drive It Like You Stole It by Hudson Thames, and this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Jell, and this is your source for Penguin-kun Wars news. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I'm probably not kidding. I don't think anyone else on the planet actually cares about this. Anyway, come to find out, the Game Boy one is not that expensive on eBay. You're just never going to find it. Not that expensive yet. You never know when all of a sudden the price will just fly up. But I'm just... whatever. We got the one coming to Switch that's going to be amazing. Let's talk about things other than that. So we're talking about the fact that the SNES Classic is going to be produced past 2017. The NES will return to summer 2018. And you're probably going, what? No, who that? What's going on here? Because it's like, why wouldn't you keep producing the Super Nintendo Classic considering all the pre-orders are currently sold out? Well, Nintendo does a very bad job articulating what they intend sometimes. Because when the NES Classic first, got revealed, people were like, oh, whatever, it's an emulator box, who would buy this? But then people were like, it's kind of cool. And, it comes out, a bunch of people buy it, and then it winds up being, really hard to get, and people are like, what the crap? And it's until later Nintendo says, oh, yeah, that was a limited-time product. We only intended to produce, a couple of those. And people are like, but we want it. We really want this NES Classic. And that was the same thing with the Super NES Classic, though this time they were more upfront. They had originally said they would only produce Super NES Classics until 2018. So we would only have 3 months of Super NES Classic production. And people were like, what the crap is wrong with you, Nintendo? Well, thankfully Nintendo has shareholders, and I'm going to thank them for this. Because I have a strange feeling Nintendo would have just kept going. But if you owned stock in Nintendo, and you were like, wait a sec, hold up. So you have a machine that everyone wants, that prints money, and you just walk up to it and go, nah, we got enough money, it's fine. Nintendo! What's wrong with you? So I'm going to assume that they just started yelling, and Nintendo had to listen. Because it is kind of ludicrous. The Super NES Classic in particular, because it will be the first real release of Star Fox 2. A Super Nintendo game that was finished but never released. And before you say, oh, you could just download the ROM off the internet, that one's not finished. There is actually a good comparison video. Like we had previously heard from Dylan Cuthbert that the ROM on the internet was not the completed version of the game. And now we actually have a comparison video. And a few people they hear about it, they're like, oh, sounds like the beta was better. Because, like, the full version of the game doesn't have homing shots. Because it was going to be the game that introduced homing shots and the full version of the game doesn't. And they're like, oh, well, sounds like the original, like, the beta is better. No. I'm just going to tell you this right now. The beta of Star Fox 2 is the easiest video game I've ever played in my life. I beat it on Expert without any sort of challenge. And it's more than just, oh, they removed this feature. The enemy AI is way better in the SNES Classic actually completed version. They've done a lot of balance tweaks and stuff. Like, that's the thing you gotta remember about that beta that's floating around the internet. That was for testing purposes. Like, probably the main point was to make sure that all the stages worked and the frame rate was fine, and they hadn't actually done any balancing. They made it easy on themselves, and then they're like, okay, how much more challenging can we make this stage before it starts getting stupid? Does this feature work? Their main concern was actually making the game easily beatable in that beta, so that way they could get through all the stages nice and quick, like. Get all that playtesting out of the way, make sure everything's working, which, geez, that has to be, like, way more important on, like, a Super FX game where you're trying to push polygons out of a Super Nintendo, and Super Nintendo's not really that great at pushing polygons. Gotta make sure you keep that playable frame rate. So yeah, the one in the Super NES Classic, it'll probably wind up getting ripped and dumped anyway, but still, first real release of this game, some of us have waited, 20 years for? And then you're just gonna say, oh, we'll just produce a couple? Yeah, needless to say, people are pissed. People have been pissed at Nintendo, because it's like, you're making a product tons of people want, and it cannot be bought on store shelves because people are just sucking them up and devouring them. So Nintendo has actually said, no, we're really going to ramp up production. And the line that gets me is that the first shipment of Super Nintendo Classics will be more than all of the NES Classics they've produced so far. Keep in mind, this is not a hard feat to match, because many people reported that at their stores, they got NES Classics in the single digits. Like Target, the store that Nintendo directly partners with, they'd get 5 units in. And it's like, yeah, we're gonna need a little more than 5. So, geez, more than have ever been released. So, they're saying they might ship up to 20 per store? What a huge number. Although that does totally mean I'm going, ooh, I just got ideas. Looks like I was all set, 'cause I'm like, man, I didn't pre-order my SNES Classic. There's nothing I can do. I think maybe if I show up at Target with a wrist-mounted chainsaw, the melee may still be on. I'm kidding, of course. About the wrist-mounted chainsaw, not showing up at Target. That might be an idea. Don't steal my idea. Because I don't know if you can actually pre-order at the store directly. I think the Target pre-orders are for online, right? And they ship it to your house? So, if they actually ship a whopping 20 units to the store, there may still be hope. Who knows? We will see how Nintendo handles this. I will say Target came through for me for Farpoint, which, by the way, isn't that weird? If you're unfamiliar, I say this a lot this show, if you're unfamiliar, Farpoint is a PlayStation VR first-person shooter, and there's a big pack that comes with a special gun controller. That, big old gun controller, you hold it in your hand, it's the shape of the guns that you're going to be holding in-game, and it has all the buttons on it for maximum quality of movement, and it's super awesome. And it's rather expensive, and it requires the PlayStation VR. And yet, the world over, this thing has actually been hard to find. Like, there are actually scalpers for it on eBay, which is just weird. Like, if you go to the PlayStation VR subreddit, there's constantly threads about, yay, I finally found one. It's like, really? For a drastically overpriced PlayStation VR game with packed-in controller? How? They've only sold 2 million PlayStation VRs. How is it that this game is still so hard to find? But okay. This is what happens. Moving right along. Let's get into some actual news here. Let's see. We'll talk about that later. First of all, there's a Nintendo Direct today at 5 p.m. I have no clue what they're going to show, but it's probably going to be something that gets everyone hyped because it's Nintendo, and they're pretty darn good at that, what with being Nintendo and all. I mentioned Samurai Showdown 5 Special is out for PlayStation 4 and Vita, and that matters because a lot of people consider that to be a really, really, really good fighting game. Keep in mind, we're talking about Special and not the regular one. A lot of people consider Samurai Showdown 5 to be really, really, really garbage. But then, Special is supposed to make it stupid good? I've never played Special, so kind of a thing. Also, Okami HD is coming in December to PS4, Xbox One, and PCs. Which raises the question, what about the Switch? That's always a question to ask. Also, Knights of Azure 2 is coming to both PlayStation 4 and Switch. That surprised me. But it gets different costumes for each one. The PlayStation 4 gets Blue Reflection costumes, and that's interlinked. Like, you get Knights of Azure 2 costumes for Blue Reflection, and you get Blue Reflection costumes for Knights of Azure 2, while the Switch gets Fatal Frame costumes. And this puts me in a tight spot, because I want to get Knights of Azure 2, and I want to get Blue Reflection, so the PS4 one makes the most sense, but I'd like to get it on the actual Switch so I can play it portably. I don't even know. Knights of Azure 1 wasn't that good, but I like the concept. I'm really hoping they improve on it for this one. And now I can talk about PlayStation VR games, Radial G, which is sort of like F-Zero, except all tube tracks in VR. Apparently it doesn't require VR, though, so that's nice. It is out in Australia and the UK, but not the United States. And that's driving me slightly nuts, because I'm not getting any answers on when it's coming to the States. It's supposed to be shortly, but this is a game that I was reporting on back in March, when they were like, game's almost done for PlayStation VR, we're just squashing bugs. And now I'm sitting here going, when's the US release? But we didn't get that. Instead, we got VR Carts, which came out in the UK quite a while back, and it can go screw itself. VR Carts has been available on every VR platform, including, the Gear VR, and I think it's on Google Daydream. And it has finally made its way to PlayStation VR, and it sounds like a good time. Hey, we're gonna play like Mario Kart in VR. That'll be fun, except they are charging nearly full price for it. Not quite, but very close. And that is more than 4 times how much it costs on every other system. And everyone's like, what the crap? Because it doesn't look that good. They don't really go full Mario Kart. It's just people in go-karts throwing items at each other on things that look like go-kart tracks. They don't go, super crazy with it. It's very basic. It's actually been out for a while on all other platforms. And on top of that, they're selling stupid helmet DLC, and it's the kind of thing you look at and you go, really? Really? No. if they dropped the price of that game drastically, I would be completely on board. If they sold it for the same price it sells for on PC, I'd be completely on board. But no, you're going to try to scam us just because it took you this long to get it to PlayStation VR? Get bent. No, not going to stand for that. Gotta have our limitations on this kind of crap. Whew. And actually, speaking of Mario Kart in VR, in Japan, Namco is making crazy VR arcades, and they have a VR version of Mario Kart. Literally Mario Kart, because they have a partnership with Nintendo. And what makes this funny is that apparently someone at Nintendo actually said that they don't think there are any fun, compelling experiences in VR yet. It's like, so did you just say that Mario Kart is not a fun, compelling experience? Because it sounds like you just did. Good times. So, I think that covers nearly everything there is to cover that's, like, really noteworthy. It's weird, like, Tokyo Game Show is, I think it's going on right now, and yet there's surprisingly little news coming out from it. That's always annoying, because it's like, this is the thing that I actually care about. What is this? Yeah, this is what I care about. I want to know more about these Japanese games that are coming out, and we're not seeing too terribly much. They're just, no one seems to be reporting on it, and it's driving me completely insane. Anything? Digimon Link's coming to the West. I think that's a mobile game. Yeah, that looks like, Google Play. Code Vein character customization. Yeah, not too much here. Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash getting more trailers. If you're unfamiliar with that one, I actually did a stream on that a while ago because I imported the Japanese one. Yeah, the next Senran Kagura game is a third-person shooter with water guns. It's pretty goofy. Not fantastic, I will say. I was very disappointed at the frame rate because, of course, Senran Kagura Estival Versus ran at a, like, silky smooth 1080p 60 FPS, and this has noticeable frame rate drops, and it's a bit of a weird one. I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it. I need to try to see if the online has improved, though, because it has this weird card power-up system, and people just kept abusing the combination of invincibility shield and the ability to disable your opponent's reloads. And it was like, wow, this is completely not fun to play online at all. But they've done, like, 10 balance patches since then. There's one thing I will definitely give the Senran Kagura developers, is that they put out a lot of balance patches. Sadly, the VR support is still not there. Whew, so, yeah, that's a bunch of things. We will see what Nintendo has in store for us at 5 p.m. You know what? I'm gonna say it. I really hope they show some Penguin-Kun Wars. Like, if they do, it'll probably just be in, like, a quick montage of, these games will be coming out for your Switch soon. So we'll get, like, less than a second of footage, because no one cares about Penguin-Kun Wars except me. But they should, because hopefully it'll have online play, and if it does, it will be the new esport, the new big esport. We're starting a Penguin-Kun Wars League. It's gonna be great. Yeah! But, yeah, other than that, obviously Nintendo's probably going to show a pile of Super Mario Odyssey nonsense. They'll probably announce when that update for ARMS comes out, because I don't think it's out yet. Oh, they'll probably talk about Pokemon Stadium DX. They have to reveal something new. They have to tease something new. I feel like that's the way it is. They have to tease something new. Oh yeah, they've got that Fire Emblem Warriors coming out pretty soon. Forgot about that. Been checking the Koei Tecmo feed. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. You know, the Nintendo Switch is such a weird system in the fact that it's like the inverse of the problem with the Wii U. Because with the Wii U, everyone was like, oh, well, no one's making games for the Wii U because no one's buying it, and no one's buying the Wii U because no one's making games for it. And Nintendo literally had to carry that entire system themselves. The Nintendo Switch, though, it's apparently still hard to find. So the Nintendo Switch is actually selling really well. And yet there's still not... It has some games, but not enough games. But now, that's the funniest thing. Like, so many people looked at it and said, well, it's just a tablet. I don't see what the big deal is. Like, so many people were wrong about it, and now they're feeling kind of dumb. And they're like, oh, crap, we gotta release something on the Switch. So there's, like, a ton of things down the pipeline, but nothing super exciting, and it's existing in this weird limbo state. And that's, of course, the reason why there's nothing super exciting is because, well, how do I put this? Basically, because it takes, the Switch is less powerful than other systems, so it takes significant effort to port things to it. So that's why a lot of developers are sort of standing there looking befuddled, because they're like, oh crap, what can we put on Switch really, really easily? I know, One Piece Unlimited World Red, which was released on PS3 and Vita years ago. Well, now we're going to do a PS4 and Switch release of it, with maybe some added content, possibly? I'm not sure. Yeah! One Piece! It's that kind of thing. It's a, oh crap, what do we have laying around that we can get working on the Switch fast? We gotta strike while the iron's hot. And I can't blame them for that, because yes, you do need to strike while the iron's hot. It's going to be interesting to see how this develops in the future. Will the popularity of the Switch hold on until people actually own the freaking system? Or will it fizzle out as people get them because there aren't enough games on it? Which, again, Nintendo is certainly trying. We've got Pokken Tournament DX coming out very soon. They just released... You've got our ARMS in Splatoon. We've got Super Mario Odyssey on the horizon. It's going to be interesting to see how everything involving the Switch plays out. But I will have to admit, on a personal standpoint, I've been playing the PlayStation VR way more than the Switch. But then again, if you've ever watched my YouTube channel, which you can just search GameBabble on YouTube, you'll find it. You know that I do love my gimmicks. I do love my weird control schemes. So no wonder, but still, it's very interesting. Yeah. Anyway, time for a break. Here's Hey Heartbreak by Jennifer Nettles. And when we come back, we will talk about Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, which I have tons of things to say about. So please stay tuned for that. Until then, please enjoy Hey Heartbreak by Jennifer Nettles here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. That was Happy Song by Bring Me the Horizon, and this is GameBabble Live, your Penguin Coon Wars news and information show. I'm your host, Jell, and sometimes we also talk about other video games here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Which, yeah. We air from 1 to 3 p.m. every Wednesday. Sorry, slightly distracted because I fell down a rabbit hole. I'm sorry. Because I decided to look up more information on good old Penguin Coon Wars because I can't stop, won't stop, And apparently the game is made by a company called City Connection, named after the old Jalico video game City Connection. And, they make it very clear that's, their logo is the car from that. And that's really awkward because not a lot of people know this, but City Connection was actually an advertisement game. The car from City Connection it's a real car. Let's see. You drive... Okay, can't find the name of it. I think it's called a Honda Connection, because City Connection takes place in Honda City. And, like, the whole shtick was that it's a small car that has, like, a built-in moped that fits in the trunk. Disappointingly, they never fully utilized that. But yeah, so their logo is a Honda Connect, or whatever it's called. And that's the company's name, is City Connection. It's like, it's a little weird. It's more than a little weird. And yes, they actually do own the rights to all of Jalico's old games. Jalico went out of business in 2014, and all of the rights to their games now belong to City Connection. And they are also doing that Game Paradise Cruisin' Mix. Like, that's one of their other things, is they like the term Cruisin' Mix, because Cruisin' was an alternate US title for City Connection. Anyway, the only really important new news I found on Penguin Coon Wars, well, okay, two things. Number one, it will not be a full-price game. It will, in fact, be priced about the way you think it will be. I'm not allowed to say prices, but still, you can probably guess the general zone of price. And yes, there is an online mode. I'm on the website, and it says modes: story mode, sound mode, versus mode local, versus mode internet. There will be online play for Penguin Coon Gira Gira Wars. The Penguin Coon Esports League starts now. Let's go! Let's talk about Ys 8. So, Ys 8, the Lacrimosa of Dana, is part of the very long-running Ys series. The first entries of it, I guess they were on, like, PC 88 and PC 98 first, technically, or the MSX or something. But we got our first taste of them on the TurboGrafx CD. So it goes back quite a few years. And the old games, I'm going to be honest, I really didn't like them. Because the old games had that... It was a weird thing a lot of Japanese action RPGs did, where there was no attack button. You just slammed yourself into enemies. And I've never really been a fan of that gameplay style. I know my first Ys game was Ys 3, Wanderers from Ys on the Super Nintendo. It was garbage. That is the only side-scrolling Ys game, and it has actually been remade as a proper top-down Ys game that plays well. But, like, the Super Nintendo got a really bad port of it with awful, like, overly small hitboxes for your sword. It played really, really bad. But the Ys series continued and got way, way, way better. I basically ignored them. Like, I played a demo of Ys 6 on PS2, and then I got when I was talking to a friend about Lufia Curse of the Sinistrals on the DS, and he showed me that Ys 7 was a very similar looking game. Excuse me. And I was like, oh, wow, that game looks really fun. So I picked that up on my PSP, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Apparently, it's been ported to Steam now, but I still think I like Ys 7 more than Ys 8. And then, of course, I played Ys Origin, and that is the best controlling video game ever made. I don't know how it can control so well, but it does. And now we're here with Ys 8. And a lot of people are taking a look at it, because this is the first Ys game that's on, like, an actual big console since Ys 6 back on PS2. So, people are like, oh wow, it's part of a long-running action RPG franchise from Japan that's very popular and well-known, but I've probably never played it, and now it's on consoles, and so people are looking into it a good bit more. And a lot of people are wondering, why is this full price? And the answer why it's full price is because it is actually a remake of... Or not a remake, but an enhanced port of the Vita version that adds in a bunch of new content. If you want it cheaper, get it on Vita. The Vita release, by the way, is actually the original Vita release without all the new content. And while we're here, yeah, Ys 8 is coming to PC eventually, but the PC release got delayed because it was chock full of bugs. Like, if you tried to run it at 1080p, it would just have the most bizarre frame rate issues, which is strange because the game looks like a Dreamcast game. Like, that's probably the one big hiccup that's getting a lot of people a little bit questioning the price of the game, is the fact that it doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look amazing. And that's the way the Ys games have always been. Like, I think I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah, no Ys game has ever been top of the line in terms of graphics. I think Ys 6 on PS2 was the closest a Ys game ever came to top of the line. Either that or Ys 4 or 5, whichever one, 5 on Super Famicom. As a side note, Ys 4 and 5 still aren't available in English, or legally in English. You can find a fan translation of 5. 5 doesn't get enough ports. It's very strange. Anyway, cripes. Just go to Hardcore Gaming 101, look up Ys if you want to know more about the series, because there's way more than I can handle there. Ys 1 and 2 have been remade a bajillion times, and I'm completely flustered by all the penguin coons. But, so, Ys 8, the first big question that I think a lot of people have is, do I need to know anything about the franchise in order to enjoy this game? And the answer is no. With the exception of Ys Origins, every Ys game does star the same main character, Adol Kristen, and sometimes his friend Dogi, who both show up in this game. And, yeah, they've been the main characters forever, but each game is a separate plot. Basically, what usually happens is Adol's on a boat, it gets shipwrecked. He gets shipwrecked a lot. Sometimes it doesn't, but usually he's on a boat to adventure, there's a shipwreck, he washes up on some island and finds a problem and tries to solve it. Then he gets on a boat to get shipwrecked and wind up on another island where he solves more problems and saves the world. 7, 8 times. It's fine. Ain't no thing. I love the fact that this same guy has been, saving the world repeatedly, and he's, not famous or anything. No one knows about him. He's basically a nobody, almost. But, he just travels around saving the world every now and then. Constantly getting shit. Jeez, it makes me wonder about the timeline. How old? Because they've revealed that he's 21 years old in Ys 8. And now I want to know how old he was in the first Ys. It's like, wait a second, this means you've saved the world 8 times in how many years? How many years? How frequently does the entire world get put in peril that you have to keep doing this? Adol Kristen is a busy man. Oh, I love this. I love this kind of stupidity. Anyway, no, you don't need to know anything about it. Adol's just on a boat off to adventure. Big surprise, it gets shipwrecked, but the twist this time is that it's a deserted island. So, you're running around looking for survivors, trying to bring them back to, you build a castaway village, and every survivor you find opens up new facilities in the village, and it grows, and the goal is to, eventually build a ship and escape. But Adol keeps having these weird dreams of a blue-haired woman named Dana. And he's like, who is this? What's going on? And, come to find out, in ancient times, there was a civilization there, and at some point, eventually, you get to play as Dana back in the past while Adol dreams about her, and there's, some kind of past-future, past-present connection. The game itself is an action RPG, a little bit on the free-roaming side. It is chopped up into segments because it was a Vita game. You couldn't just do a big continuous world. So it's chopped up into segments, but the load times between segments is negligible at worst. And the gameplay is very fast. That's the thing Ys has been trying to do, is stay fast. Because they've described, the reason why they did the slam into enemies combat was because they wanted it to be, quote-unquote, like popping bubble wrap. Now, the Ys combat has evolved drastically throughout the years. And what we have in Ys 8 is actually a really solid combat system. This time you actually have a party of 3 characters, which you can instantly switch between on the fly, so you could actually do some crazy character switch combos. But the other 2 characters are running around and attacking monsters as well. And you jump, you do your basic melee combo, you have a different melee attack if you're rising or falling during your jump. as well, and then you hold a button and press any face button to do your different skills, and your skill points recharge stupid fast. So, yeah, just spam your skills, hit buttons, whatever. You get bonus experience for doing air combos, which anytime a game does that, anytime a game is like, hey, get fancy with your moves for bonus experience points, instantly in love. And it also has witch time and parrying. By that I mean, if you wait until the very last second before an enemy hits you to dodge roll out of the way, time will slow down for, like, all the enemies, everyone except you, and you can just wail on them. And if you wait until the very last second to block an enemy attack, you get your skill points instantly refilled, and for a limited amount of time, you do nothing but critical hits, and just do stupid damage. And it's like, okay, that's really fun. I love the way this game rewards skill, and yet at the same time, you can get by kind of just by running around and mashing the attack button. Enemies do not take a lot to defeat. Basically, nearly every random enemy in the game takes about 3 hits to take out. And you run into swarms of like 5 and 10 of them. It's not like Dynasty Warriors or anything. It's actually like a really nice balance. You don't really feel like, oh, these enemies are nothing. Each one has just enough meat on their bones that you feel like you're fighting them, but you go through them so fast, and like when you hold down the dash button to run, you can just blaze through the game. And the overall game design, one of the things I really like about it is how retro but not retro it is. How old school but not retro. Because one of the things that kind of drives me nuts is a lot of indie games are doing the pixel art retro chic thing. And I'm cool with that. But sometimes when you try to go retro, you hold yourself back. You say, oh, this was what gameplay was like back in the day, and you don't allow yourself to evolve it. Ys 8 is not doing that. Not even remotely. This is an evolution of the gameplay in Ys 7, which was an evolution of the gameplay in Ys 6. It's just a game series that never said, I need to be AAA, I need to compete with Final Fantasy, and I need to sell millions of copies. It is a game series that is comfortable selling purely to its fan base, and so it has evolved at such a slow rate that it's retro but not. Like, that's the craziest thing with Ys 8, is I'm playing it and I'm like, no, this is actually better combat than a lot of action RPGs. This feels really good, and yet at the same time, it still feels a lot like a Super Nintendo game, which is very much reflected in the music. One of the best parts of Ys is the music. It's most memorable because, it was a Turbo CD game. It was on TurboGrafx CD, the first one. And I've mentioned this before, old CD-based games were such a weird time. Because, the original Ys 1 on TurboGrafx, it kind of just looks like an NES game, except with some anime cutscenes and this amazing CD soundtrack with wailing guitars everywhere. And they've kept that up. Like, you have, some calm, soothing, symphonic moments, but then you get out on the field and the tempo gets stupid and you get these driving guitars, but it's not like Guilty Gear, except for boss battles. Then it's a little like Guilty Gear. It's not dark in tone. It's a very light widdly woo, and I just described the music as widdly woo. And I think that is unfortunately the only way I can describe it, because I'm not good at describing music. I think the best way to put it is, it's not quite like Mega Man music, but it's closer to Mega Man music than Final Fantasy music. There's just something that brings a smile to my face when I'm like, okay, we have this nice calm cutscene, and we're on the boat, and we're talking, and we're about to embark on adventure. We're embarking on adventure, and then just guitars just start blaring, the tempo gets beyond Eurobeat, and I'm like, yeah, 300 beats per minute sounds perfectly reasonable. Just start wailing on those guitars. We're borderline nightcore here. It's like nightcore rock or something. Just go look up some of the music on YouTube and you'll see what I mean. But The speed of the music goes very well with the speed of character movement and the speed of the combat, and everything is just fast, which is funky because it is kind of an open world adventure. Once you get started, it's just, hey, here's a big deserted island, let's go look for survivors and run around and stuff. I guess it's not quite, because it does gate off sections with different pieces of equipment like a Metroidvania. Or a Zelda. I kind of almost want to describe the game as being like the original Legend of Zelda at 5 times speed in your Super Saiyan. like that's almost how I want to describe it. But you know what? We're going to have to take a break pretty soon. But you know what the best feature of Ys 8 is? And I got to give it all the props in the world for this. You can reconfigure the buttons. Now, that shouldn't be a big deal. Except it is. So many games these days, your buttons are set in stone and you can't reconfigure them. Like, most games are like that. But Ys 8 lets you reconfigure everything, and thank goodness, because I hate the default button layout. Like, half the trouble I was having with the game was just I didn't like the button layout, and I was like, I'm going to get used to it, And that's like, why do I even have to? Let's reconfigure the buttons. And it even lets me, like, assign multiple things to the same button. And the reason why the layout had to be changed is that, remember, this is a port of a Videogame. So it was using, like, L1 and R1 as your primary shoulder buttons when I feel like L2 and R2 work better. So mostly I flip-flop that. But I also noticed, you click in R3 to recenter the camera. And, the game looks enough like a Dreamcast game that I kind of want to play it like a Dreamcast game. And if you've never played a Dreamcast game, in those games, you didn't have a second analog stick to control the camera. So nearly every 3D Dreamcast game, you tapped the left trigger to recenter the camera, and you did that constantly. And I kind of enjoy playing. Ys 8 like that more than anything else. So I actually set it up so L2 is my special move toggle, block, and recenter camera all at the same time, and it works out gorgeously. And I set R2 to be my dodge roll. And it's like, I'm playing so much better now, and X to jump and square to attack. Because by default, X is attack, circle is jump, L1 is dodge roll, and R1 is special moves and block. And I was like, no, we're changing this layout. Let's go. And you can, like, disable some things, too. Like, there's a button you can press to instantly access the map, or a button to instantly access your item inventory. And you can just disable that if you want to. Use that button for something else if you don't need, like, instant healing item access. And I appreciate that. I appreciate what they did with the ability to let me reconfigure the control layout, because now I can play the game and enjoy it a whole lot more. But now we have to take a break. So coming up next is Paris by the Chainsmokers. When we get back, I guess we'll talk more about Ys 8 unless I stumble across more Penguin Code Wars information. Look, it's the Tokyo Game Show. Lots of information is coming out about Japanese games, and lots of people are just not reporting on it. Penguin Code Wars finally puts up his website. We finally have gameplay footage. Apparently they did a gameplay stream of it. That's a thing. Here's Paris by the Chainsmokers, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Please stay tuned. Hello, you are listening to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. That was Wild by Troye Sivan featuring Alicia Cara. And this is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Wednesday from 1 to 3 p.m. And before we continue talking about Ys Lacrimosa Dana, slight correction update about City Connection. I thought it took place in Honda City. No, the car is called a Honda City. That's what it was. City Connection is about driving a Honda City, so it is very awkward to have a company called City Connection who uses a 1985 Honda City as part of their logo. But, whatever gets the job done, whatever gets the Penguin Coon Wars in the Switch, right? Because that's all that matters. Moving back to Ys. Ys 8. So, in general, I've been enjoying it. If you're curious, the game has a ton of difficulty level options. Like, it has, like, easy, normal, hard, expert, and inferno, which I do like that it's the same difficulty levels as Earth Defense Force, as the Earth Defense Force series. Yes, let's just make Inferno difficulty the universal hardest difficulty level. I'm okay with that. But yeah, the game is very nice. You can, few other nice things other than the ability to reconfigure all your buttons. You can save anywhere. When you die, you can respawn at the last checkpoint crystal, and boss fights just let you restart from the beginning of the boss fight. And there's even an option to restart and drop the difficulty level at the same time. So, all very nice features. I hear the game, like the regular Vita version, is about 40 hours long. And yes, the Vita version released in America is indeed the one that doesn't have all the extra dungeons, but it is significantly cheaper. It also, and this is the weirdest thing, and there's a lot of complaining on the message boards about this, the Vita version has more DLC. Like, the PS4 and Vita versions have different DLC. The Vita ones are different, and the most notable, they have pirate costumes and swimsuit costumes, and those are only on Vita. And speaking of DLC, that's been one of the stumbling points for the PS4 release, is people who bought the game day one were supposed to be able to download a retro costume for Adol. And I'll be honest, that was part of why I pre-ordered it, because honestly, I don't like the default costumes in the game because they look too similar to one another for the three main characters. So I was very excited to get a retro Adol costume and, kick it old school. And then I get there and it's like, what? It's unavailable. Like, apparently people who pre-ordered it digitally got it, but not anyone else. And, Nippon Ichi America, good old Nisa, they're contacting Sony. They're like, this is a mistake. There was a communication error with Sony, which is not uncommon, let me tell you. And so they're trying to get that ironed out. So I should hopefully have my classic armors soon enough. Until then, though, I am enjoying the game. I think it is pretty darn enjoyable. I'm curious how much these extra dungeons are going to extend the game. But again, I really like the speed, and I am amused by the fact that it really looks like a Dreamcast game. It's also worth noting that apparently the Vita release has like a lot of like frame rate drops and stuff in it, whereas the PS4 one is pretty much a consistent 60 FPS, especially on a Pro. Apparently, I'm hearing the Pro will do 4K 60 FPS solid, which, it looks like a Dreamcast game. I can't stress that enough. And it's weird, because it doesn't look bad at all. Like, the textures are nice and crisp. Character models are clean. They fit the visual style. It's very nicely stylized. Since it has an anime-style look, these more simplistic character models look perfectly fine. But they don't push a single speck of the PS4's power, like, at all, not even remotely. And, that's just been, and they've been, like, a major focus of why people are like, why is this a full-priced game? Especially with so many other games coming out at below full price. And again, that's because it came out only a few months ago in Japan, this particular version, because it's an upgrade of the Vita version, and I do understand it, though, because there are a lot of people who are like, if this was below full price, I'd totally be on board, because it looks like a fun game, but it doesn't look as polished as a AAA game. And, the discussion about video game price is an interesting one, because I do agree that video games I think companies need to spend less money making their games and sell them at a lower cost. Like, I do think, AAA games are kind of absurd in a lot of ways. So, I do think games should be made at a cheaper price and sold at a cheaper cost. I'm totally on board with that. But at the same time, I'm going to sympathize with Ys 8. I was like, I'll pay full price for this. The other Ys games I played were super fun, and I'm kind of on board with this, especially because it is such a niche game. But yeah, no, that's about Ys 8. It's a fun time. I think I still like Ys 7 a bit better, and next time I have some money to spare, I'm probably going to pick up Ys 7 on PC, because, of course, I have it on PSP, but I don't play my PSP very much, but I really, really liked what I played. I would definitely say the difference between Ys 7 and 8 is the camera, because Ys 8 actually has a more traditional back-view-ish 3D camera. Whereas Ys 7, it was full 3D, but it used kind of a top-down isometric-y camera, and that worked out a lot better for Ys, which is traditionally a top-down view game. And it had some interesting, like, fixed camera moments. Like, one of the boss fights back in Ys 7 is where you're running towards the camera away from a boss while you're fighting it, and I'm like, wow, that's a very Crash Bandicoot of you. I kind of look forward to picking that up. But like now after playing Ys Origin and Ys 8, I'm like, I kind of want to go back and grab all the other ones. Like now I want to see if I can find a PS2 copy of Ys 6. Like I kind of want to do that. But yeah, that's about where we're at there. Remember, there's a Nintendo Direct today at 5 p.m. And also, I'm sorry. Let me look something up. It's on our Facebook page. Apparently, we have a band coming in, like, this weekend? What's the deal? Coast Modern, stopping in Saturday afternoon before their show at the Firebird. Alright, so if you're familiar with the band Coast Modern, or want to get familiar with the band Coast Modern, they will be showing up here at 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave Saturday afternoon. So hit up the Facebook, tune in on Saturday. Good times. Wow, there's my nose right on the Facebook page. Fantastic. Yeah. And let's do one more check if any new video game news is coming out of Tokyo Game Show. No, not really. Not quite. Oh, that's disappointing. Because I know there's a bunch of stuff being shown and no one's caring. No, we need people to care more. Anyway, I think it is about time to wrap up this show. Again, don't forget we've got to look up showtimes for Lupin the Third, Castle of Cagliostro, and Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, because those will be in theaters. Limited engagement, one showing on a couple of different days. So look those up. Both of those are movies I would recommend. I've seen both of them. They're both fantastic. And tune into the internet at 5 p.m. to see what Nintendo reveals. Egad, don't buy VR carts, and fingers crossed Nintendo learns how to produce enough game system. You know what? No. That's my one more thing. You know what's really frustrating about the whole NES debacle? The NES Classic debacle? Nintendo produced more Famicom Classics than NES Classics. They produced more in Japan than they did in America. Which, makes sense at first until you remember, oh wait, number one, it's an emulator box. It's not expensive or hard to make. And number two, Japan is about the size of the state of California. So it's like, you might want to have made a few more NES Classics. And this is a mistake Nintendo has made multiple times. If anyone is familiar with Amiibos. If you're not, Amiibos, the little figures you put in your Wii U to unlock things and save data and do goofy stuff, they were very popular. They were selling out like crazy in America and in Europe and kind of Australia, but mostly in America, they were selling out like crazy. And in Japan, they were just lousy with them. They're just sitting on store shelves. People quickly learned if they wanted their favorite character's amiibo, pay extra money to import a Japanese one because you're never going to find the US one. And it is one of the most, mind-numbing and frustrating things ever. It's like, wow, so the amiibos are almost, they're doing mediocre in Japan. And they're selling like hotcakes in America. How long will it take Nintendo to learn this lesson? Because Nintendo Nintendo is Nintendo slow sometimes. It's looking like they're finally learning, oh, hey, people are actually mad at you because they can't give you money. Like, when you're a company and people are angry at you because they can't give you their money, there is a big problem. That is called a problem. That is called a problem you need to fix post-haste, because there is money on the table. Piles of money. Just sitting on the table. You can just take it. I wish I could have... what I would give to be a fly on the wall during the last Nintendo shareholder meeting. Because I'm sure it was a shareholder meeting. I'm sure it had to be the shareholders saying, Nintendo, all of us can make so much more money if you just make more emulator boxes. Do it. but it's a limited edition. Rare. Do it. Actually, that is right. The way this report was written was very confusing, though. Let me bring this back up, because Nintendo might... Before we go, Nintendo might be pulling some wacky hijinks with this, too. Wacky hijinks that I half approve of, by the way. Let me see if I can find that report. It was on Silicone Era, and it had some very awkward wording at the end about the NES Classic. There it is. The Super NES Classic Edition releases in North America on September 29th, 2017. The Nintendo Classic Mini Super Famicom releases in Japan on October 5th, and pre-orders will begin for it on September 16th. Okay. Nintendo Classic Mini Super... Okay, Super Famicom. That was what they typoed. Because they were talking about the NES Classic coming in summer, and Sumer looks like summer minus an M. So I was like, are they doing a summer edition? Like, that was the thing. I was like, are you telling me that the new NES Classics are going to be different from the old ones? And how different would they be? Will they just be different colors, or have a little sticker on them? Or will they have different games? Because that's certainly a thing they could do. And I actually wouldn't mind if they decide to put a little summer sticker on there just to say this is a different print run of it, so that way the collectors can be all like, oh, but this is the first edition NES Classics. They're still worth thousands of dollars. And I would be okay with that, because for most normal, sane people, they just want to have a little NES Classic in their house. Or Super NES Classic. Whatever. We will see how it plays out. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. If you can't get enough of my rambling, I do have a YouTube channel, which I'm going to try to do some actual updates on. I wrote a script recently that I need to record about, like, me thinking deeper about the nature of video game criticism, based on this whole Cuphead debacle. Because there's one article, it's on Paste, talking about how gamer culture fetishizes skill. And I was like, what? And the part that got me, the part that set me off, and I was like, I could do an entire video just on how stupid this one line was him mentioning there are multiple methods of content absorption without mechanical interaction. Exact wording. What he meant to say, what that means in real English, is there's multiple ways to experience a video game without playing it. And outright says you could just watch streams and Let's Plays. And it's like, are you seriously saying that game critics can criticize a game based on streams and Let's Plays? And I have quite a tangent that I go off on there. And rather than doing it on the radio, we will save that for YouTube, because I scripted it. It's a long script. So I need to record that, find some good background footage that would match with it. And yeah. And of course, I've got tons of streams that I put up there, because I stream every now and then. and I should probably stream some Ys 8 as I'm getting into it. Once again, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, for GameBabble, like, the actual address is like youtube.com/user/GameBabble show. All one word, of course. But you could just search GameBabble on YouTube and you'll find me. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I'm going to kick you back to the music now. Next up is The Way You Used To by Queens of the Stone Age, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. See you again next week. Once again, GameBabble Live right here, Wednesdays from 1 to 3 p.m. Catch you then.